Alright, here's a low effort video where I just talk about Greatsword and Monster Hunter Wilds. Alright, so the first thing I want to talk about is the damage of Greatsword. Now, Greatsword damage is actually very good. It's probably one of the best in the game right now. And the reason for that is because Draw Slash does a lot of fucking damage. This line's about 120 damage, and we have Charge Slash 3. You see Charge Slash 3 does more than 120, almost 140 damage here. And then Strong Charge Slash is actually not that much more. It's a little bit more than 140. And even this is what I kind of knew, like just by looking at the damage numbers, like without actually having to look at all the data, but just looking at the damage numbers. TCS is not that strong in this game. It only lands here. TCS 3 only lands at 180 damage. And we can do the calculation here. So if we go 180 divided by about 140 here, TCS only does 28% more damage than Charge Slash, which is not that much given the amount of effort it takes to get into it. So if you're trying to play Greatsword by forcing TCSs, you're not really playing Greatsword right. You're just not doing good damage. You get so much more efficient damage from Charge Slash and Strong Charge Slash than you get from TCS, because Charge Slash and Strong Charge Slash are really easy to get into, and it should be. They're your basic moves. They're the first hit in the combo sequence. Now, I know why the developers made TCS weaker. The reason they did that is because there's two shortcuts that you can do to get into TCS. One is from wounds. So if you do Focus Strike Perforation on a wound, you can go into TCS that way. The second way to go into TCS is via Clash. You actually can't TCS from a offset parry. They actually have a dedicated follow-up, which is the follow-up strike, which does a good amount of damage. So it's like you don't even need TCS for that anyways. Now, this got me thinking, like I've been experimenting a little, and TCS, when you do it from a Focus Strike, you actually don't have enough time to fully charge the TCS off of a Focus Strike wound pop and get the TCS off. It's actually not safe a lot of the time, and that got me thinking more broadly like about wounds. And this plays into what I was thinking about and how they want wounds to be played. They want different weapons to play wounds differently. So for example, Greatsword wants to pop the wounds when the monster's toppled so they can get the clean TCS off, whereas other weapons, especially weapons that have resources and gauge to manage, they want to pop wounds to immediately refill their gauge. And that could be during various states during the hunt. The monster could be on its feet, it could be toppled, it's really situational, but they're going to prioritize wound popping if they need to fill gauge. Now there's other weapons that are just very simple, like Lance and Sword and Shield, where they just get pure damage out of it, right? There's no real incentive to pop the wounds later or to hold off on popping the wound. They just want to get the damage immediately so that they can get, build up damage towards topples. And I'm actually going to make another video on how wounds and topple mechanics work, because this is actually different in this game. There's a lot of nuance, and all the monsters behave differently. You're just gonna fully understand how the game works. All right, so going back to Greatsword, right? So I'm of the belief that they want you to actually reserve TCS for Clash and for wound popping, but wound popping only when the monster is top on the ground so you can get the full TCS. You could, for certain monsters, if you're lucky, if they throw out a good move, you could do a Focus Strike Perforation, pop the wound, go into TCS, and get a TCS 1 out of that opportunity, because there's not enough time to charge to level 3. But then there's sort of an opportunity cost situation provided here, because why not just wait, right? Just wait till the monster's incapacitated, pop the wound, and get a full TCS charge out of it. If you look here, TCS 1 does less damage than a Charge Slash 3. So why would you want to do a TCS 1 when you can actually save that wound and get a full TCS out of it and do 30% more damage rather than doing 90% damage of a Charge Slash 3? Just thinking aloud here, I'd rather just get more damage, right? And another thing about TCS, and it's not just TCS, it actually goes for every hit in the main Greatsword combo chain, is you can cancel every hit into an offset rising slash. That has huge implications for Greatsword. That changes the way Greatsword is played dramatically, because you can cancel out of Charge Slash, Strong Charge Slash, and TCS all with offset rising slash. Now you can keep the combo going. This has especially big implications for TCS, but I'll explain the implications for Charge Slash and Charge Slash as well. Well, actually, I'll explain Charge Slash and Strong Charge Slash first. It's because it's simple. What that means is you can extend into the monster's attack window now with charge slash and strong charge slash. And because you can cancel into offset rising slash, you can go straight into defense. You can go into parry, right? And that's going to take skill and it's going to be risky. And ultimately, in the very long run, it's going to require lots of monster knowledge to do this. I think it's a very good change. It makes Greatsword a little bit more dynamic, and it changes the hit and run playstyle to a more boxing type playstyle where you're dealing out attacks, but you're immediately able to go back into defense and play defense for yourself. So this is a very good change. I actually look forward to this change, and I look forward to what people do with it. You have two options now when you want to go back into defense after you throw out a draw slash, charge slash, or strong charge slash. You can throw out those moves, go into offset rising, or you can just do the standard roll, sheath, and continue the combo there. All right, so next thing, let's talk about the consequences of offset rising slash from TCS. This is actually really, really big because TCS, there's only one thing you could do out of TCS, really, is just roll and get the hell out of there, because you're probably towards the end of the window that you have to attack the monster. The monster's getting back out of a topple or is about ready to attack you, and your basically only option was to roll and get the fuck out of there. But that's not the case anymore. TCS, this has two big implications. The first big implication is that it's the same as charge slash and strong charge slash, where you are allowed to go straight into defense. You cancel out of the recovery of TCS, go straight into defense, and go into and potentially get a parry and just keep the combo going, right, and keep the offense going. The second implication of this is that allows you to keep the damage going. So what do I mean by that? TCS, because it takes a long time to do, it traditionally in old games meant that the damage was backloaded, right? You were trying to get TCS in, but you're also trying to fit in as much damage before the TCS as possible, because once you did TCS, you're done dealing out damage, right? Because you went to high recovery, you had to roll, cancel sheet, get out of there. But now the damage from TCS is front loaded, and this actually makes sense with how they want you to play TCS now. If the damage is front loaded, that means you're trying to get TCS 3 off as quickly as possible. Then you can go into offset rising slash, and then what can you do after offset rising slash? You can go straight into a charge slash and just start the combo from the very beginning. So that means because this high damage is front loaded, you get the TCS off, whether it's through just, the standard topple, you're trying to get TCS off as quickly as possible. If you get a wound pop, you can go straight into TCS, right? Or a clash, you can get TCS off. You get your TCS off, damage is front loaded, and you keep the combo going with a rising slash, and then you can go into charge slash, and just like maybe you can even potentially get another strong charge slash after that charge slash. So it would go TCS, rising, charge slash, strong charge slash. That would be the combo to keep the damage up and keep your DPS high. Offset slash has big implications for how Greatsword is played now. It's actually, honestly, people are focusing too much on the parry aspect of offset rising slash. Yes, that's a big change, but the ability to cancel out of TCS, strong charge slash, and charge slash with offset rising and continue the combo, that's even a bigger, just as big implication in my opinion. All right, let's talk about DPS and time and frame stuff for a bit. So I actually did a lot of experimentation with Greatsword, and I want to just show some interesting findings here. This is for the people who are not really into the draw slash style of Greatsword, which is actually honestly the best way to play it outside pending very specific optimization, is you do the draw slash. So I did a DPS analysis and also time analysis, but we'll just focus on DPS analysis of draw slash, and then I counted how much DPS you're actually doing during the time when you do the draw slash and then the blade lands on the ground, right? So that's the end point, is when the blade lands on the ground. And I did that compared to charge slash when you're unsheathed. So when you're unsheathed and you do a charge slash, if you didn't know this, it takes a longer time to actually pull the sword back and land on the ground. And the thing about draw slash and charge slash is that it's technically the same move, right? It does the same amount of damage, and it's considered the first hit in your Greatsword combo chain. So if you look at the DPS here, the DPS of starting the draw slash and when the blade lands on the ground is at 90. And the DPS of starting a charge slash from unsheath and then kind of like winging the whole blade around and landing the blade on the ground, it's only about 50. So you can see that's actually almost twice as much DPS. And this should be a clear indicator to you of why the draw slash style of Greatsword is so powerful. Tackle advocates out there, they're like, just tackle everything. And I've been saying this for so long. Tackle doesn't do that much damage. It really doesn't, okay? Sure, it can inherit charge when you go to level 3, but after you do tackle, you can't, you get a strong charge slash out of it, but like even in this game, strong charge slash isn't that much better than charge slash, right? Another point I want to make about draw slash too is in this game, it's incredibly buffed because there's one important thing that the developers gave you in this game, and that's the ability to rotate 360 degrees after you sheath. So if you do a draw slash, you do a roll, and you do a sheath, try this out. I did this in my other Greatsword video. I showed it in my Greatsword guide for Monster Hunter Wilds, you can rotate 180 degrees and completely turn your hunter around and face the opposite direction after you sheath. So you can do tech where you are doing a draw slash roll, sheath, turn 180 in like an instant, and do that again, do a draw slash roll sheath, and just repeat that over and over. And the amount of damage you can get out by just doing draw slashes in that manner and maintaining uptime on the monster without having to move that much. Because remember, if you do have rotational movement and you can flip 180 degrees and just immediately continue the attack, your damage output is gonna be extremely high, okay? And at the same time, you're still playing defense to some extent because you're rolling. When you roll, you're naturally getting out of the way of the monster if the monster's locked onto you. So you can do this dance where you're just doing a draw slash, again, turning around, draw slash, turning around, draw slash, turning around, and kind of weaving and dipping between the monster's attacks, which is actually quite beautiful to watch. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is this segment right here. And this is 2 consecutive attacks. And I'm trying to calculate the DPS between 2 consecutive attacks. But in the first case, I have sheathing, and the second case, I don't have sheathing, right? So the first case right here is draw slash, forward roll, sheath, and then another draw slash. And then I end the timer right when the second attack lands on the ground, when the greatsword lands on the ground. And I'm doing the same thing for the other ones, except in the other ones, I'm instead of rolling and sheathing, I'm actually just going straight into a charge slash 0, like a second charge slash, and then I'm ending the time when the sword lands on the ground. Right, and you can see the DPS for this combo of 2 attacks is already higher than the DPS of the other attacks. Look, its DPS is at 42, 43, whereas if you don't roll and sheath for the other attacks and you just try to go into another charge slash 0, the DPS is at 30. You're actually getting more than 33% damage DPS than if you were to not roll and sheath. Not only that, in the bottom 2 cases where you're not rolling and sheathing, you're actually gimping your movement, and it's most likely going to be the case that you actually have to adjust a little bit, whether it's through rotational movement or translational movement, where you're spending frames and more extra time to get into place to even do that second attack. So the effective DPS of these is probably actually going to be lower than 30, probably like around 22 or 23, depending on about how much you have to move. Now, if you have to move a lot, the DPS is actually going to be significantly tanked, and it's probably gonna be like 10 or less. This is another reason why you, at least at the very baseline of Greatsword, you need to know how to do as a Greatsword player. So for future videos, I'm gonna do this very casual talk for other weapons and other insights that I find with all the weapons in Monster Hunter Wilds. So subscribe if you're interested in that. What I'm gonna do is probably make this data available, but only for Patreons or people that support the channel in some form. I'll probably leave a pinned comment depending on what I finally decide to do with making this data available. And it's gonna be for every weapon. And honestly, I just wanna make a really large database of all things about Monster Hunter Wilds. And so right now I have all the weapon data like I got from the beta. It's obviously going to change, and it's no big deal. We just update it when the game is fully released. And then I'm also going to add monster data as well. There should be a lot of interesting things. I already started accumulating a database and spreadsheet for monster data. So subscribe if you're interested and if you want more content like this. Thanks for watching.